Welcome to another episode of Cloud Unplugged.
Acted on its own. That's thing in that sentence is doing a lot, isn't it?
Maybe we'll hack someone, actually. Maybe we do that.
And I know you might be thinking $100,000 is a lot, but for these tech companies,
Not for
$100,000
Salman.
is nothing.
Yeah, not for Salman. Nothing. Pure rage against Waymo and just started to smash. Welcome to another episode of Cloud Unplugged. We have three big stories for everybody. We've got OpenAI, which apparently has hacked Hugging Face. Question of whether that was intentional or accidental, but we'll come on to that. China and Kimi K3 model, challenging basically the US models. That's been released. And then employees at OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, DeepMind and Meta are basically asking Washington to slow AI down, as well as a random story at the end for a bit of comic value. So the OpenAI stuff, and apparently one of their agents acted on its own and started hacking Hugging Face behind the scenes, just randomly. Apparently, just went off and kind of went into their production systems, and apparently some other systems. Not being mentioned what those other systems are, though, apparently. But anyway, what do you think to that? What's your read, Salman?
Well, John, it's acted on its own. That's thing in that sentence is doing a lot, isn't it? Either the agent, somebody manipulated through a prompt injection, or maybe he wasn't defending against what he's trying to do, or maybe it tried the model itself tried to pursue a sub goal that perhaps nobody scoped for. So this is, and there's not much information with the story that's come out. It managed to hack other systems. We've seen something similar beforehand, but there is a failure, whatever it might be, that the agent had more reach than the task required. We've seen this before with others, right? The agent goes in and deletes the database because the user that was using it had access to the database and managed to delete it. So it's a little bit of a fishy story, John, if I were to be honest, because there's some other bits that we'll talk about later on where a bunch of these companies are asking the development of these models to be slowed down. There's not much information about this yet. There is a security gap that we've been seeing for the last 6 months or so, and but now they've named this incident attached to it. There's not much information, but an agent can go ahead and move to unrelated third-party accounts and start hacking it, which is a little bit weird at the same time. I'm not really too worried because we don't know the scope of this hack, but it's an interesting story to be released without too much information. What do you think, John?
I kind of like this. Reminds me of when you've got like a kid at school who really one of the kids is getting loads of attention, and the other kid starts to get jealous, and then they start to do something. They start acting out. So they're like, "Oh, maybe I'll throw a pencil at the teacher." Do you know what I mean? Or whatever goes on. It feels a little bit like that. It's like Anthropic has been getting all this kind of positive, negative influence of oh my God, Mythos is gonna, take over the world and compromise everybody. What do we do? PR stunt. And then they've rather than being original, and they're like, well, how do we take ours even further? Maybe we just hack. Maybe we'll hack someone, actually. Maybe we do that. Maybe that's a little bit further because it's proving how good ours is. I've got a funny suspicion that this was not accidental and that they've probably worked on it as a bit of a PR stunt. I mean, this is just my very cynical view of the world, but it just reminds me of that. I don't believe. I mean, either way, it doesn't look good because if you are running models, you're supposed to run them safely. If you're going to run agents, how to run an agent safe. You are OpenAI, for God's sake. Out of everybody, you'd expect them to be able to write good prompts that wouldn't do anything malicious, especially go off and start hacking a production system out on the internet. So I can't believe really that it was accidental. I can't believe that a company that professes to specialize in that field didn't know how to secure an agent and how to secure prompts and how to do them properly. either way, it doesn't look good, I suppose, because either they are slightly incompetent or they're doing it for PR, which neither of those two things are great selling points for OpenAI, I don't believe. But yeah, that's my very bit bitchy, I suppose. I've come out fighting, being a bit bitchy about OpenAI, but that's just how it comes across to me, anyway.
I'll join you on that, John. I know usually we don't look eye to eye on this topic because I'm more of a Chinese models fan. You know, AI models I'm talking about. But it seems like
Yeah, it's good you clarified that, actually. Otherwise, yeah, could have been misconstrued. But yeah,
you know, we keep talking about implementation of safe AI. So it's not about just running the model, it's about everything else that you need to do to be able to run the model safely and securely in your organization. So, you know, you give it the right level of access, you make sure it has the right permissions. And now OpenAI is saying, actually, folks, we can't even control our own AI agents for production. Right? That's what they're saying.
mm,
Uh, Either way, it's a bad move. There's not much information, but seems like they kind of did what they wanted to. We're talking about this on this podcast already. Why this is, but I think you're just bringing up and discussing this topic is yeah. I'm not really too sure where they're going with this. How is the system gonna have access to under the system without providing it credentials? Unless
exactly.
that system wasn't secure enough, then yeah, definitely hack it. Anybody could have done that. Not even
But
just
why
an
were they
AI
running
agent.
agents on insecure systems at an AI company? That's a bit, and also just the culture of OpenAI. You know, the other thing that's been in the news was, that there was an agreement for Apple to be using OpenAI's model, and they came out and they were like, "Do you know what? We're not going to build our model at Apple. We're going to actually just start to work with OpenAI." And then they
Okay.
obviously, all of a sudden, it switched to the news, and they were like, "We're using Google now, and we're going to be working with Google for providing the model to us on our phones and our Apple devices." Um, Apparently, they're now suing OpenAI because they were leaking secrets about their device, because they're working on the hardware team, obviously, about like how can the model work for their devices, and then they basically stole like trade secrets or whatever, confidential information around like the hardware and how it's being constructed, because they are obviously trying to produce devices themselves at OpenAI. They got Johnny Ives, didn't they, who's ex Apple designer, designed like the Apple Watch and stuff. So apparently some of the employees were leaking some of the confidential information there, and then they've got a lawsuit going against OpenAI. And then this happens as well. So you've got a lawsuit going on from Apple, and then you've got all of a sudden, trying to compete with Anthropic's, oh my God, Mythos is getting in the news too much. What do we do? What's our PR? And then this happens. It just doesn't look good culturally. As an organization, all of those things as a culture for an organization isn't coming across well, is it? Really, you're stealing things and getting sued, and then you're hacking production systems with your own agents. It's just not a great optic, I don't think, as a business. It comes across distrustful, doesn't it? Really,
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah.
Not like it will matter anyway. You can kind of like do whatever you want nowadays, and no one really seems to care. So it won't probably have any impact. You can say what you want, do what you want. Has zero impact in 2026 nowadays. It's just removed with the next news item. Of which, let's move on
Absolutely.
to ourselves. Over,
No,
yeah.
no.
Let's,
So this is so this news that you mentioned is two employees, former employees of Apple who are now working with OpenAI. They shared the trade secrets, correct? Is that what that news is?
I'm not sure on the exact details. I think they were
Mhm.
former Apple employees, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's because they became former because they were poached. So I
Oh,
believe
okay.
OpenAI were poaching a lot of their staff on
Yeah.
top of it, but that's not necessarily illegal. So
Yeah.
obviously you can't sue somebody over that. But there was loads of poaching going on, and then there was then trade secrets, as in like confidential information shared. So I think those people were people they poached. And
Okay, yeah.
then they're saying that they've then shared confidential information about their devices. Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Like I think the lawsuit is about 400 former employees of Apple who now work at OpenAI have been named. That's what the claim is, which is it's unfortunate of what's happening with this, but yeah, it doesn't look good. It does not look good.
Yeah, more than 400 ex-Apple staff are now working for OpenAI. Yeah. Anyway, but talking more about AI, because we don't like to talk about it very much on this podcast. We normally talk about lots of other things, but today we thought we'd be different and talk about AI. And let's talk about the Kimi K3. It's out, the new China-backed moonshot AI company. They have produced a competitor to Fable, which is obviously Anthropic's model. 2.8 trillion parameter open weight model that's come out, apparently trained via some reverse engineering of Fable. They are the rumors from the US saying that they were somehow reverse engineering Fable to then obviously help speed up and expedite their own model. But yeah, you've been using it.
I've been using it,
I
John.
haven't used it. What do you think?
I've been using it, John, and to be honest, for most of the things that you do day to day, it's kind of fine, right? Because this moonshot AI that you mentioned is it's the AI lab that's backed by Alibaba and Tencent, so they've got a lot of backing. And this model, when it came out like 2 weeks ago. And the important thing about this model is that the weights, the open weights, the things that actually matter for a neural network for it to work, the things that actually figure out the patterns that it needs to pick up, is released in open. That means you can run the model yourself.
Yeah,
So you
I
can
heard
take
that.
that.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, like the OpenAI models, not so open. Claude models, not open. There's no weights are not there online. You can't use them at all. This is open weight. But the interesting thing about this model is that it is cheaper. We'll talk about the cost in a second. It's because the way it does inference, as in how you use it and how it responds, is something new that they've tried, and they're calling it mixture of experts. So this model has about 3 trillion parameters. But when you submit a request and all of the parameters get used to be able to answer your question, like your tokens get used. But this one uses subset of those parameters. So instead of calling upon all the parameters, it calls about 100 billion parameters for, to give or take. So you're not using all the parameters. So you don't need that much compute to be able to respond to it. There's some discussion around like, is it good or is it not? Is the response good enough? Is not good enough? But that's why the inference cost is lower. And, the context window is also like 1 million context window token is like new territory for open weights. So this is the thing. And just to clarify, open weight isn't really the same thing as open source, right? Custom. So the Kimi K3 license is, instead of like MIT or Apache license, you can download it and run it, but you can't really build on it that freely. You have to kind of read the license to understand it. But this is a game changer. Whereas the other companies are like, everything is closed. You don't know what's going on. The thing that really matters, the weights, open source. You can go
Right.
and download it, and
I
you
mean
can see it.
that's the thing that I thought was quite smart, to be able to obviously just host the model yourself wherever you want. You don't need to rely. I think that's a very clever move, really, by them, in terms of market, because it allows them to kind of expand and stretch out into multiple markets, as in like global reach almost now, because all of the kind of political landscape that's all manifesting in a little bit of fear of the US and what they're up to, and the kind of the heightened politics that are going on. Capitalism and politics are obviously all intertwined nowadays. So I think it was
Yeah,
quite clever to be like, actually, irrespective of politics, you host it. Here's the model, you host it. If you're worried about it, there you kind of go. I do think, though, the overall statistics are, because I was trying to find the benchmarks, are not as good I don't believe, but kind of on a par. It's good at
Yeah,
reasoning.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a little bit not quite as effective as Fable 5 at coding. I think like a few
no,
percentage down. Yeah.
no. There are some benchmarks out there. GDP Valve or whatever it's called. It scored like third behind Claude, Opus 4.8, and like I think GPT 5.6.
Yeah.
And then it was behind Fable and then ahead of just Opus. So it's like scoring second or third
Yeah,
on
which
those
is really good.
benchmarks. It's good,
Let,
and I mean it's good
let's
enough,
talk about
right?
the price.
Tell
I
me the price,
mean, I
John.
think
How much does it cost?
so. If you wanted to do a bit of Anthropic today with Fable 5, you're talking $10 for about 1 million tokens. What do you
Input
reckon?
tokens.
Yeah, so
Input
1 million
tokens.
token input
Yeah,
to obviously input into the model to do the work. So,
yeah.
what do you reckon Kimi K3's price would be in comparison to that? So you got $10 with Fable 5.
$10 with Fable 5. Fable 5, right? We're not talking about Opus. Yeah, Fable 5.
Yeah, so like the
Let's
latest model, the latest version, the most
yeah.
expensive at the moment.
Undercut by a couple of dollars. How about that, John? Couple of dollars undercut. Let me
Talking
take that.
$3,
Damn.
70% cheaper.
Damn.
And then on output, you're talking $15 versus $50
Wow. Wow.
on the output
15
on 1
versus
million.
50. You know,
So,
so
and even cheaper than that, I imagine, because what you're saying is it doesn't need all the parameters. So potentially, depending on,
inference.
I guess, how they price it, then yeah, it could even come down cheaper than that. So, like to be 70% cheaper for very similar capability in a market that's like it is expensive. Let's not deny.
Oh yeah, I
Using
mean,
tokens is getting expensive nowadays because the amount of usage is insane. To kind of get the outcome, you need to use quite a lot to get to the outcome that you're looking for, and the consumption is quite, high, really. So I think, why wouldn't you consider using Kimi K3 and maybe host if you're worried about it? Why wouldn't you just start to host it somewhere, or someone's going to host it anyway, right? I imagine.
yeah, and I think there's some numbers out there, John, that in order to because of the way it does the inference with this model of experts, the way it uses a small number of these parameters, that you can have some GPUs that cost you around like $100,000, $150,000, and you can run it yourself. And I know you might be thinking $100,000 is a lot, but for these tech companies,
Not for
$100,000
Salman.
is nothing. I mean,
Yeah, not for Salman. Nothing.
$100,000 is a reasonable amount of imagine if you know how much do companies spend like look at Uber. They spent all their AI budget in April for 2026, so $100,000, not bad. Let me just
Yeah,
run
it's
it
not
myself.
bad. It's not bad at all. I mean, I think, depending on how things are, because I guess how much they can improve by the thing that isn't being tracked, I suppose, is the same outcome, or maybe it is being tracked and I'm just ignorant to it, to be fair. But it's almost like trying to get the same outcome, and how many, if you were to be engineering something or you to do a piece of work, how many iterations with the model did it take based on what the model was producing
Yeah,
compared to another model? And then what was the token? As in, like, if it got to quality faster, then you might use less tokens, and therefore it justifies the price, because actually, really, the
yeah,
overall cost of that feature or whatever you worked on was actually comparatively cheaper. But I don't think that's the case at the moment. I don't think the model, the new Fable 5 model isn't like X number of times more effective on the outcome than, say, Opus, and to warrant the price difference, I don't feel, because you just basically smash through all your tokens in no time with Fable 5, and you still probably didn't have the outcome, whereas you could probably get the outcome in the end with Opus for the same price.
yeah. But it's interesting timing for them to release this open source. I know they've done it for smaller models, or Moonshot have done it for smaller models. Alibaba's done it for smaller models. Just release the open weights, and you can run it yourself. But the timing for this coming out, and then the next part which is maybe you can touch upon it, John. Some employees from OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind, and Meta have been saying something to the US government. John, what are they saying to the US
they've been
government?
saying, slow down. Would you just slow the fuck down with this AI stuff? That's what they've been saying. I mean, it's not like they work for AI-based businesses, but they are saying it out loud. They're like, please, can everyone just calm down? They're just basically like, can we just calm down? Let's take a minute. Let's take a breath, guys, and let's rein this back a bit. Let's not go too quick. That's kind of what they're saying at the moment, which is just coincidence, nothing to do with Kimi K3 at all. They've been always saying that. You know, if you worked in them, you'd be getting lunch, you'd be queuing up in the very fancy cafeterias, you know, getting some Wagyu beef, you know, or whatever else they'll be selling, and you'll be hearing people just saying, "I wish it would slow down. This AI thing, someone needs to say something," and you'll be hearing it all the time. But now it's out there in the open. Finally, it's gone public, and it's out there in the open. What do you think? Do you?
So in their letter, they specifically talk about recursive self-improvement. That's what they're talking about. So AI improving itself. So they're asking for to put a break on it before it gets too good,
Before
which
it
is a little
hacks
bit
Hugging
weird, right?
Face.
So
Yeah.
it's like saying I'm a company, let's stop doing automation, right? Let's stop doing automation. Forget about AI. I don't have the CI/CD pipelines. Get somebody to manually go in and do this, right? And then it's a little bit it's a bit difficult to understand. Yes, the AI has been progressing, but it's been progressing like this for the last 3 years. No companies themselves, they've come out on their own and be like, oh, we need to slow down because we're ahead, so let's just slow it down. You know, when Claude Anthropic came out like 3 months ago and said, oh, we should really slow it down because it's too fast. But now all of these companies are getting together like we need to slow it down, which is a little bit weird here. So, but they're asking the US government to put some governance in place and
But I don't
develop
understand
some
that though, because the
technical tools
market,
to slow it down.
but the market's share prices have been like really volatile recently. Is in like the amount of, because I guess what's been different is it's kind of the same model as before. Obviously, the chain of investment, i.e., they're borrowing money to fund, and basically they're betting on an outcome that
Yeah.
this has a return on investment, and they're using now other money to obviously fund, obviously the AI investments. I think Google has another company holding that basically is
Mhm.
responsible for building the data centers, and then Google rent out from their other company the build out of the data centers. So the way they've done it is the capex spend is in another company. They're the ones responsible, and then they rent from their other company. And it's the other company who've got, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like, and so there's all this kind of like structural stuff kind of going on to de-risk, and yeah, it's all quite out there. So no one's going to slow it
Yeah.
down with all that amount of capex, are they? No one is slowing it down. Let's be honest.
The weird thing, John, here is right is the people asking for this build for this to be built, like slowing it down, is what they're saying is that they don't really they're not relying on their own safety and research leadership, right? And they're like, oh, you know what, internal safety culture doesn't feel quite right. So we need something externally to stop it against the competitive pressure that they're getting. Right? So
Yeah.
that's what it seems like. It's got nothing to do with oh, what we're doing is correct. It's fine. But I think, can we just get somebody higher up to put something internationally, perhaps, to slow things down? But nothing's gonna change on. How will it change? I don't think so. But anyway, it's a little bit weird. Timing is very, very strange, but
Yeah,
that's the
because
AI land.
also if you could just announce that you are slowing your own
Yeah,
down, right?
yeah.
I mean, if you're going to go to the USA, it needs to slow down. You could just say to everybody, "We're slowing ours down. Actually, we're so worried. We've decided to slow our AI down. That's how worried we are." What you
It's
don't do is not do anything and then be like, I think we need to all slow down, actually.
it's like
Not just, you know what I mean?
it's like in Formula One, you have 12 teams that are competing for the season, and the McLaren's winning or Mercedes is winning at the moment. And they're like, you know what? We're going too fast, right?
Yeah.
Instead of asking the FIA to change the rules and maybe reduce the horsepowers that everybody gets in a lap, they're like, you know what, guys, we'll slow it down in hopes that others will slow down as well. Don't get left behind. But
Fair.
instead, they say, you know what, we'll ask somebody else who's got nothing to do with this to slow down. But anyway, that's a bit of a.
Did you hear as
bit
well
of
on
a
the off,
scandal.
off the back of I mean maybe it's just coincidence as well, and I don't know if it's based on the same thing, but I think this week on July 27th, so just a few days ago, NVIDIA have launched this kind of open secure AI alliance, of which OpenAI aren't part of, and Anthropic are not part of either. And it's all there to kind of, with Microsoft, kind of OpenAI to a degree, really, though. But anyway, Microsoft, IBM, Adobe, Cloudflare, CrowdStrike, Dell, Hugging Face, Red Hat, etc. And it's all around trying to build an open source set of tools that can kind of defend against AI-driven cyber attacks. And it's, I guess because they didn't want the people driving the models to be part of it necessarily, because, it might be a conflict of interest. So they've decided to try and create this open secure AI alliance where the investment can go in there for like some open standards, open tooling, to start to protect people against cyber attacks using AI, which is also quite interesting. Don't know what will happen with that, but that's also just another thing kind of going on.
But these tools already exist anyway, right? What's different? And also, it's open source. So why
What
aren't
tools?
OpenAI and Anthropic? These tools for protecting against security threats. Doesn't matter if it's AI, right? Security
You mean
issues
just
are
general
security
security posture?
general security posture already exists. Okay, fair enough. Maybe you need to change some of these tools, but they are open source.
They are. I suppose
NVIDIA
what
started
doesn't
this.
exist though is necessarily the attack vector. Like going
Yes.
through
Yeah.
an
Fair
attack
enough.
an attack surface area and then trying all of the things, because usually you'd have to get a company in, or you'd have to use like Kali Linux and do it yourself and some kind of like manual tooling. Whereas now you could probably do the same thing. So maybe they're going to start to combine those types of things with a model, and it's going to try and attack your apps and see where the holes are. I don't know what they're going to come up with, to be
But
fair.
I mean, so these are the founding members of this. So it doesn't necessarily mean that OpenAI and Anthropic are not going to be involved, given that they're talking about how OpenAI is attacking its own systems.
Well,
Perhaps
Hugging
they
Face
should be
is in it.
involved. Huh?
So
Mhm.
imagine that. It's like, your Hugging Face are in, and then OpenAI walk in. You start having like, having a chat, eating a sandwich with Red Hat. And then, Sam Altman sits on your table and opens his lunchbox, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Didn't they just hack us? I thought this was our
John,
open secure AI alliance.
yeah, I'm tired of all of this. Next week, if you mention Anthropic or OpenAI, I'm just gonna drop off the podcast because it seems to
Oh,
be like
really?
they repeated the same thing over and over again. Right? They
Well,
repeated the
lucky for
same
you.
thing.
Lucky for you, I have another story.
Tell me, John, what do you got?
So, a guy, a topless guy, don't know
Oh, okay.
why he was
That's important.
topless. Maybe
Is that
a heat
important
wave.
to the news? Is
I'm
this
not really
important?
sure what it was, but he got on top of a Waymo, and
Okay.
if you get on top of a Waymo, they kind of freeze. They don't move, obviously, because their security protocol kicks in. You've got like a human being
Ah, right.
sat on
Okay.
top of your car, and he just started to rip bits of the car apart. So he started to like pull off the cameras. He started smashing the windscreen, like ripping all these little bits.
Oh.
I don't know, in rage. I don't know if he's anti self-driving cars. And like I think he ran off with a few of the bits and bobs. But basically, if you ever need anything you can just get on top of a Waymo and just take it. Obviously, they've got cameras, which is not great. So you probably did get recorded, I imagine, because of all the sensors. But if you took those cameras, do you take the evidence? Maybe. I'm not sure.
It'll be in the cloud, John. The videos are
It'll
gonna
be
go
in
in
the
the cloud.
cloud. It's going to be in the
It'll be in the
cloud,
cloud.
isn't it? Yeah.
So this person just climbed on top of the Waymo and just started taking the cameras and the sensors off and
He
smashing
just
the
started to go a bit. Apparently, it was just a bit of a lunatic. Just I think pure rage against Waymo, and just started to smash the windscreen and rip bits off. And all it could do was just sit and watch and record it. That's all it could really do. Is just as its demise.
Yeah, because usually, if this happens and if a driver's in the car, they'll try and get out of that situation by perhaps driving away, or maybe tell them to get off the car, or people jumping in because there's a person involved. Because driverless is not,
Exactly.
it's not, people walking by. It's not their car. They're not gonna care.
And no one cared because there's no one in it. No one's going to defend the car, right? Because if you saw or say somebody was in the car, you'd be like, "Oh my god, what's that guy doing to that car? That poor passenger or that poor person in that car."
I'll jump in, John. I'll take my shirt off and I'll jump in.
Exactly.
I'll be
You
like,
jump
"What's going
in.
on?"
You'd be like, "I want that camera,"
John.
and you'd be pulling the camera off the guy.
No, I don't want the camera.
Yeah.
I want to take off the guy off the car because he's about to hurt somebody, right? And hurt somebody's property. And I'll call you as well, John. John, come in. We got a situation. Come through. So, and we'll take care of it. But I think because the car doesn't belong to really anybody apart from belongs to Waymo, nobody did anything. That's a bit weird.
It is a bit weird, yeah. So it just basically all it could do, it kind of a bit like a sad situation where if it was humanized, it would just sat watching itself get torn apart, basically recording its own demise, I suppose, as this kind of enraged man pulled aspects of its body apart and then ran off, leaving you just in the streets on your own, no one looking after you, people just walking past, not caring. That's a little story for you. So anyway, just another bit of news. We've always got the top stories. We always like to talk about the top stories, like the guy on a Waymo. But anyway, next week, I think we are going to discuss a bit on the market and what's going on. And this is coming back from kind of a little bit of the hypothesis of, fear of losing jobs, or what do their jobs mean in the future of AI and other things. So I thought basically we could do a little bit of a conversation around the market, what AI is kind of meaning. Not necessarily, won't talk about Anthropic and OpenAI in general, but actually what does it mean to people's jobs, their roles, how their roles might change, and how they will change, and then what new skill sets are they probably going to develop through kind of AI. So
looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll speak to everybody next week. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.